Hello everyone, welcome back to Trillo, my YouTube channel. I'm trying to get back to YouTube. Hope you like this video, and without wasting our time, let's begin. After school, the two got to know each other more as they chatted on the way home, and Midoriya couldn't help but feel warm. Shortly after reaching his classroom, Midoriya was overtaken by a wave of exhaustion, as if he'd just ran a marathon. It's a side effect of teleporting, Gojo had explained. The better you get at it, the less exhaustion you'll feel, and thus, he decided not to try teleporting home as to not drain himself. I don't know much about him, but I trust Gojo-san. I have a feeling he's not a bad person. Plus, he gifted me with these amazing abilities which I can use to become a hero and help people. I must be the luckiest person alive. Welcome home, Izuku. How was school? School was great. I made a friend today. Inko smiled. You made a friend? You'll have to invite them over someday. Yeah, maybe one day. Behind him, Gojo laughed. Tell her I'm right in front of her. Midoriya's sweat dropped. She'll think I'm crazy if I do that. He headed upstairs, Gojo following him while talking excitedly about Zunda and cream-flavored kafuku? Bright. The word is bright. Kind, carefree, friendly, charming, someone who can attract all kinds of people like a magnet and strike up a conversation about pencils or something and still manage to make it sound interesting. It's almost funny, he's basically the opposite of me. Gojo Satoru is bright. What's that? Oh, it's just my homework from last night. The 5th graders are dealing with this stuff already? Man, I hate fractions. They're actually not that bad once you dash. Bakugo Katsuki suddenly slammed his hand on Midoriya's desk, palm smoking. Kakakins. The papers flew up in the air, falling onto the floor. The blonde looked down at him with an irritated look in his eyes as Midoriya shrank back in fear. Who the hell have you been muttering to this whole time? It's annoying. And no one. Just myself? Well then knock it off, it's getting on my nerves. He sauntered back to his desk as the bell rang, a glare remaining on his face. What a bad personality. Who's that? Gojo asked. That's Kakin. He's my childhood friend. Midoriya spoke in a hushed tone as to not annoy Bakugo again. That guy is your friend? Well, we used to be friends. I think. Our relationship is complicated. The teacher walked in, signaling the start of class. Midoriya collected the fallen papers into a neat pile. You shouldn't let him push you around like that, Gojo said, floating above him. I know, but Dash, Izuku-kun, do you have something you want to share with the rest of the class? The teacher asked. Midoriya shot up, shaking his head. I know, sir. Sorry. The other students laughed as he sat back down with a tomato-red face. Midoriya sighed, hefting his backpack over his shoulder. Finally, school is over. Maybe I'll get some of that kafuku Gojo-san recommended. And then that's when I entered the room, completely dashed. Gojo was cut off by a loud cry of protest, drawing both of their attention towards the side of the school building. Huh? Why are you crying? I thought you wanted to become a hero. Heroes don't cry, you know. Midoriya paled. That's Kakin's voice. Are they bullying someone? I have to stop them. But what can I do? Kakin he's so much stronger than me. Gojo watched as Midoriya froze in place, like a deer in headlights. I'm curious to see what he'll do. I want to help, but the fear, Midoriya swallowed. I can't help it. He began to run. Not away, but towards the scene. Kakin, he yelled as he skidded to a stop in front of them. Oh crap, there's 3 of them. Bakugo was holding a student by the collar, about to punch him in the face. Midoriya almost reeled at the sight of the poor boy's bruised and bloody face. He even had a few minor burn marks, definitely from Bakugo's quirk. Why did they go so far? What the hell do you want, Deku? Get out of here unless you want to become my punching bag too. And don't you dare say a word to the teachers. I can't do that. Why are you hurting him? He didn't do anything to you. This brat thought that he could boss me around. He went up to me and said that I wasn't worthy of becoming a pro hero. Of course, as the future #1 hero, it's my job to punish liars. Midoriya nervously frowned. That kid is totally right though. Oh, time's up. I gave you a chance, but it's too late now, he said as his 2 goons grabbed Izuku's arms from behind. Hey, what are you doing? He was filled with an all-too-familiar fear as Bakugo approached him, hand smoking. As promised, Midoriya lost his ability to breathe for a moment as he suddenly received a punch to the gut. Hey, let me go at him too. Look at this loser. He's already crying. That night, Midoriya got home an hour late. He lied to Inko and assured her that he'd just fallen down the stairs at school. Sullenly, he dropped his backpack on the floor of his room and began to disinfect the wounds. So you sacrificed yourself to save that kid? I wouldn't say sacrifice, but Midoriya applied the last bandage, eyes dark. I'm just glad he got away. Why? He was a stranger. It doesn't matter who he was. But I know that he tried to tell Kakin the right thing. He had more courage than I ever did. And you're okay with this? Of course I'm not. I want Kakin to stop. I want him to use his power for good. But I'm just not strong enough. Yet, he plopped down on his bed. I'm used to his antics. I know they're horrible. So one day, when I have enough courage, I'm going to make sure he never abuses his power again. Gojo gave him a hint of a smile. Just when he thought the man was about to say something heartfelt, he said, 7 out of 10. Midoriya gaped at the mountains of trash. It seemed to stretch on forever from where he stood. You want me to clear out this entire beach? Gojo nodded. It'll serve as a decent warm-up. After all, we have to train your body physically first in order to take on even half of my power. A decent warm-up? But I teleported just fine yesterday. You barely managed to teleport, which is impressive by itself for someone who just received that power. But it was only for a very short distance, and you almost threw up afterwards. You also almost fell asleep from exhaustion. Remember? That means your mental and physical states are too weak to handle even one of the easiest techniques. Midoriya's sweat dropped, and I thought I was doing pretty well. He gazed at the heaps of trash. I mean, where do I even start? Good idea. How about that fridge over there? A fridge? I'm only 10 years old. There's no way it'll budge. Izuku spent the rest of his Saturday cleaning up piles of trash off the beach, preserving mostly because of the help and threats from Gojo. Welcome home, Izuku. Where were you all day? The gym? Inko asked jokingly as her son took his sneakers off, drenched in sweat. He laughed nervously. You have something like that? What's for dinner? Curry rice. Ugh, I'm starving. I can't wait to take a shower and go to bed. I could collapse right here and fall asleep. He followed his mother to the dining room. Well, at least I have Sunday off. Oh, and Izuku, we're going back tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp. Every other weekend too. What? Inko jumped. Oh gosh, what's wrong, Izuku? You scared me half to death. He held his hands up. It's nothing. I stepped on something sharp. I'm fine though. He reassured her. Oh, we'll make sure your foot is okay. It could have been glass. As she went to prepare the curry, Midoriya sighed. Gojo-sensei, what do you mean every weekend? I almost died just from today. I swear I saw the light on our way home. How will I survive if I have to do that every weekend? He hissed. Gojo chuckled. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. By next month, it'll be like a daily routine. I'll be dead by then. I'll be a ghost like you. Oh, stop fretting, you'll be fine. I picked you for a reason. Midoriya flushed slightly, hesitating. Well, if you really think so. Izuku, honey. Who are you talking to? Oh, no one. Just myself. The following day, Midoriya left a note on the table, telling Inko that he was out for a morning jog. So, Gojo-sensei. He almost dropped the broken microwave on his feet, grunting when it nearly slipped out of his gloved hands. As a ghost, can you perform paranormal activity, like making things float or changing the radio? Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I can't. Believe me, I've tried, but I might as well be playing old air. Satoru was quite bummed out because of that. He'd always thought that it would be fun to haunt random people and levitate their silverware or something. With a huff, Midoriya took a break and placed the microwave down. So you don't get hungry or have to use the bathroom or anything? Nope, that sounds like a boring life. You're probably thinking, that sounds like a boring life, right? Okay, how did he know? Is he a psychic too? I'm not a psychic, you're just pretty easy to read. He did it again. And is that an insult? But Gojo looked up at the bright morning sky, the same color as his eyes. After several days, Midoriya still wasn't quite used to them. You're right. It does get boring. It feels like I don't exist. He laughed. Which I don't, except to you? Izuku gazed at him. That's right. I can't believe I didn't realize it before. Gojo-sensei has been wandering around dimensions for who knows how long, looking for the right successor. He's probably lonely beyond my imagination. I can't believe he hasn't gone insane. You're really strong, Gojo-sensei. Yeah, I know. But where'd that come from? I just never mind. I'm really glad I have you here to guide me. Gojo paused before smiling. You're weird. I like you, Izuku. You're like Yuji, if he was more reserved. Who's Yuji? That's a story for another time. 3 months later, Gojo-sensei was right. This is getting a little easier to bear, Midoriya thought to himself as he wiped some sweat off from his forehead. I'm impressed you cleared out this much in just 4 months, Gojo said, surveying the clean section. Though it was small, it was still progress. It's thanks to your support, Gojo-sensei, he said, smiling. Hey, give yourself some credit. Most people would have given up by now. Midoriya blushed. That's not Dash. Deco. He flinched, turning around slowly. There, a few meters away, stood none other than Bakugo Katsuki. Kaken, what are you doing here? He was unresponsive at first. Then, slowly, the blonde began to walk forwards, taking quicker steps as he got closer. All Midoriya could manage was a single frightened step back. Bakugo grabbed his shirt collar, furious red eyes meeting scared green ones. That's my line. Damn Deku. What the hell are you doing, fixing up this dump? You think you can become a hero just by putting on some measly muscle? And no, I just dashed. Don't lie to me. Midoriya flinched as the blonde snapped. He began to feel a familiar heat creep up his neck. Kaken's quirk. I'll tell you what. He shoved Izuku down, and he landed on his knees, the coarse sand grinding into his skin. It's been a while since you've had a proper beating. No, please. The fear began to consume him, from head to toe, and his mind abandoned all logical thought. You need a real lesson because it looks like you're still being persistent. Izuku was met with a solid kick to the gut, and he fell to his hands and knees, one hand hovering over his wounded stomach. His eyes widened as he stared at the grubby sand below him. I can't breathe. It hurts. Listen up, Deku. Bakugo grabbed a fistful of his hair, forcing him to look up and meet his demeaning gaze. Quirkless losers can't become heroes. Midoriya's face was suddenly on the ground, his left cheek burning with pain. Oh, he punched me. The punch was followed by a ruthless barrage of kicks to his stomach, to the point where he felt like his lungs were horribly bruised because of how difficult it was to breathe. He felt more powerless than he ever had in his life, only being able to curl up and place his hands over his head to protect himself. Stop. Please stop. I don't want Gojo-sensei to see this. I don't know which fucking idiot told you that you could actually become a hero, but they're dead wrong. You're quirkless. Powerless. Someone like you. He angrily threw Izuku down on the ground, stomping mercilessly on his battered body. Someone like you can't even dream about becoming a hero. Finally, Midoriya couldn't hold it in anymore, and tears began to stream down his face. Stop. Please stop, Kaken. He begged so quietly that the blonde had hardly heard him. Bakugo sneered, leaning down and cupping his hand over his ear. Huh? What was that? I couldn't quite hear you. Bakugo suddenly stiffened, feeling an ominous presence. He whipped around, scanning the junkyard. Who's there? There was no response, but he still felt some sort of murderous intent fixated on him. And it wasn't Midoriya. His face was buried in the ground, anyway. He growled, forgetting about the other boy's nearly unconscious body. Come out, you coward. I know you're there. All of a sudden, the sinister feeling disappeared, and Bakugo paused before narrowing his eyes. Did I imagine it? He almost yelped when a hand wrapped around his ankle, and sighed in relief when he saw that it was just Midoriya. The relief quickly turned into annoyance, which turned into anger. Get your damn hand off of me, nerd. I'm done with you for today. He shook his leg, cursing when he didn't let go. Let go of me, Deku. Slowly, his grip loosened. Bakugo grunted, shoving his hands in his pockets. Just as he turned around to walk away, he heard a shuffling noise behind him. Is he still conscious? He turned around to see Midoriya pushing himself up, his head hanging low. At his sides, his fists were clenched so tightly to the point where Bakugo could see some blood appearing. And for some reason, he didn't quite seem like Midoriya. He didn't want to admit it, and he never would. But Bakugo felt almost scared. Me? Scared of Deku? That's hilarious. He's just a quirkless loser. He pulled his hands out of his pockets. Now what's this? You want to go for round 2, Deku? But when the boy lifted his head, Bakugo stilled, eyes wide. Instead of the familiar shade of emerald green, Izuku's eyes were a startlingly pure blue, like aquamarine crystals. And they were looking at him as if he were no more than an annoying fly with a trace of hate. I won't allow it. I won't allow this piece of crap look at me the same way I should be looking at him. What the hell, Deku? You got some useless eye color-changing quirk or something? He asked with a smirk, keeping his poker face up. Yeah, that's all it is. Deku ended up having a quirk after all, but it's so stupid and puny that he might as well not even have one. That's it. But the boy who was always so nervous and fidgety in front of Bakugo completely ignored him when he spoke. He ignored him, staring at his hands instead with a relatively quiet gaze that didn't belong on Izuku's face. As if the trivial lines on his palms were more interesting, more important than Bakugo. Something erupted in his gut, and he scowled, inciting an impressive explosion from his hands. Answer me, you bastard. Finally, Midoriya. He is Deku, right? Looked up, and the calm chill in those foreign blue eyes stirred up some instinct buried deep inside of Bakugo. Run, he glowered. Fuck that. I'm not running from Deku, of all people. I'm above him. I'm the superior one. I'm stronger than him. So why? Why can't I move? He was unfamiliar with the concept of fear. The overwhelming feeling of having someone so immeasurably stronger than him standing right there, bloodlust pouring out like a waterfall. Still, Bakugo managed a nervous laugh, taking a small step forwards. You seem pretty gutsy all of a sudden. Calm down. He's still Deku, the quirkless crybaby. Why don't you come over here and dash? His eyes widened when Izuku suddenly disappeared. Where did he go? He whipped around. Behind me! Just as he turned around, something was shoved up against his throat, and he felt his feet lift off of the ground. Something's choking me. Why can't I breathe? He forced himself to look down, stunned when he saw Izuku standing below him. A single hand wrapped around Bakugo's throat as those cold cerulean eyes stared into his wide red ones. Where the hell dash? He coughed, struggling to speak. Where the hell did that come from, Deku? Was he lying about being quirkless the whole time? No, that doesn't make sense. Even as he was thinking, Bakugo could feel his consciousness and rationality slipping away, turning into pure fury instead. He lied. He struggled to free himself from the iron grip, eyes furious and unfocused like a wild animal. You tricked us, damn it. You had a quirk all along, Deku. He gasped for air when Midoriya finally released him, coughing on his hands and knees on the ground. I have to get up. He flinched when he felt his body being shoved over, and he was suddenly sprawled out and facing the morning sky. He got a few more seconds to breathe before Midoriya kneeled down, pressing his throat to the ground. No matter how much the blonde pried and kicked and burned his hand, he didn't even budge. Not even a hint of pain showed in his icy eyes. And worst of all, it looked like he was exerting no effort at all. Like Bakugo was just a boring side errand. And then he finally spoke. I'll say this to you once, just to be clear, but I'm not Izuku. His eyes widened. What? The green-haired boy's voice sounded smoother than usual, like a teacher instructing his students. Any traces of his usual nervousness and stuttering were gone. My name is Gojo Satoru. Remember at Katsuki? The next day, Bakugo didn't show up to class. Or the day after that, or the day after that. Midoriya, despite his relationship with him, was starting to get worried. What happened to him? Flashback, after the fight between Gojo and Bakugo, Midoriya shot up with a frenzied look in his eyes. It took a couple seconds for him to calm down and realize where exactly he was. Well, what? This is my room. When did I get here? Wasn't I? His eyes widened as memories flooded his head. Wasn't I just with Kakin? How much do you remember, Izuku? He looked across the room and saw Gojo leaning against the wall, eyes slightly dark. Gojo-sensei? How did I get here? What happened? The green-haired boy's face grew a bit red and bitter. Did he see? After that, there's no way he thinks I'm still worthy. That Katsuki kid really did a number on you. How do you feel? Satoru felt a bit relieved at the lack of reaction. Good. At least he doesn't remember being possessed. That would have been a hassle. He flexed his hands before giving the man a reassuring smile. A bit bruised, maybe, but nothing I'm not used to. I'll be fine. That was a lie. To be honest, he felt like Bakugo was socking him in the gut with every breath he took, and his mind was replaying the blonde's harsh words over and over again, like a torturous taunt. But he wasn't about to admit that, especially not to Gojo. I've put up with it for almost 7 years now. I can go a few more. By the time I've mastered this power, I'll be strong enough to stand up for myself. With those words, Satoru felt a slight pang. But nothing I'm not used to. He was only 11, for God's sake. He shouldn't have to be used to it. He shouldn't have to take a beating and follow it up with a clearly fake smile and say, I'll be fine. So how did I get back here anyway, Gojo-sensei? Wallow, after you fainted, one of your neighbors found you and brought you back. He already left, though, and your mom is out buying groceries. She doesn't know you're home. In actuality, Gojo had walked home before Izuku's body collapsed from exhaustion on the bed, and he was forced out. It's a good thing I landed on the bed instead of the floor. Oh, I'll have to thank him later. Who was it? No idea. I didn't really get a good view of him. And Gojo mumbled something afterwards that Midoriya didn't quite catch. What was that? I'm sorry, Izuku. With those words, Midoriya suddenly remembered his mother crying and hugging him so long ago, saying, I'm so sorry, Izuku. I'm sorry, to him over and over again, even though she wasn't at fault at all. Why? It wasn't your fault. I should apologize, if anything, for being such a weak and cowardly successor. You know, I just thought that if I wasn't a ghost, I could have stopped him. And if I'd just taken action earlier instead of hesitating, you would have been left unscathed. Midoriya just laughed his usual "it's fine, no worries" laugh, as if he weren't carrying the weight of the world. There are some things in this world that we can't change, no matter how much we want them to. Instead of dwelling over what's already done, we should focus on what's already happening and what's bound to happen. Gojo let himself smile a bit. I guess you're right. I mean, hey, I'm the elder here. I'm supposed to be giving you wise advice, not the other way around. After a moment, the two of them began to laugh, although Midoriya's chest admittedly hurt with every chuckle. 4 days passed, and Bakugo, Katsuki, finally summoned the courage to go back to school. That, and if he didn't, his mother would murder him. But he couldn't help the strange, dark feeling bubbling up in him as he walked to school. I'm not scared of Deku. I'm not scared of him. I'm just wary of whatever possessed him. He convinced himself, but not scared. I'll just ignore him for the rest of the school year. I won't make eye contact with him. I won't acknowledge him. He doesn't deserve to be acknowledged, anyway. He doesn't deserve to. The smell of something burning filled the air, and Bakugo realized that he'd been holding his bag just a little too tightly. When he entered the classroom, covered in band-aids and a scarf around his throat, the class erupted with comments and whispers. Whoa, what happened to you, Bakugo? You get into a fight with a high schooler? I've never seen him hurt before. Gay, why is he glaring at us? Was it some low-time villain? Why are you wearing a scarf? It's spring. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Midoriya flinch and look away as he took his seat. Yeah, he finally muttered. It was a villain. Did Kakin actually fight a real villain in these past 4 days? That's amazing. No wonder he's all beat up, Midoriya thought to himself as class started. He heard some of the students murmur amongst themselves. Did you hear that? Bakugo fought a villain. With his quirk, he probably won. Cool. I wish I was born with his quirk. He's so cool. He hasn't glared at me even once yet. Why? Does it have something to do with our fight? He glumly remembered that it hadn't been much of a fight and more of a one-sided beatdown. But it's fine because I'm getting stronger now. Back then, all I could do was dream and take the hits. I've made progress. I'm so glad Gojo-sensei chose me. Oi, Izuku, pay attention. I'll abandon you if you fail class, Gojo said jokingly. Midoriya straightened in his seat. Ah, yes, sir. His face turned tomato red when the students and teacher looked at him confusedly. He knew something was wrong when 2 whole weeks passed and Bakugo didn't yell or even look in his direction even once. And if I try to ask him about it, he'll beat me up again, Midoriya confessed to Gojo. Well, I can't exactly tell him that I possessed his body and scared the shit out of Katsuki. He's probably just used to you. Used to me? Yeah, like, you know how kids throw away an old toy after it's not fun anymore? It's probably like that. Gojo's sweat dropped. Don't take this badly, Izuku. The boy deadpanned. Ah, so I'm like a worn-out toy to him. Yeah, that's probably it. It can't be that fun beating up and bossing around some quirkless kid. After all, I basically just retired. Whoa, he's gullible. I might talk to him, though. Huh? Why? I can't risk Izuku finding out what really happened. Probably not anytime soon, but... The boy smiled. I want him to know that I'm not the same quirkless kid anymore. I have to tell Mom, too. It's not fair to keep her in the dark. But for that to happen, I have to get stronger first. Strong enough to defeat Kakin. The kid can make explosions, right? Believe me, once you get a hang of my power, he'll be like an ant. An ant? Ah, to this day, I'm still not sure why Gojo-sensei picked me. But I want to make him proud. I'll make. Izuku. Honey, what are you laughing at up there? In nothing, Mom.
Mom,